All right, we are here in Red Belt Podcast with Casey. How you doing, Casey?
Doing pretty good, man. Long time no talk, brother.
Yep. So I've known Casey. I, I'm losing track. Like it's got to be. It's way more than a decade. It's got to be a decade,
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah,
So Casey was the owner of 10th Planet. Believe that was that Costa Mesa that I went over.
yes,
A
sir.
lot of 10th Planets. Like over the years, is what? How many of them have you had? Three, four,
I've had eight.
eight, eight.
Yep.
How many you
Now,
got right
now
now?
I've got a 10th Planet Las Vegas, 10th Planet Downtown Las Vegas, part owner in 10th Planet Tucson with Anthony Burchek. And then I own a kickboxing gym in California called Classic Fight. Yeah,
You,
and that's it.
all right. So you broke up
Oh
right
my God.
there a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I'm back. I can hear you now.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. So the last one you had a gym in a kickboxing gym in California, you said?
Yeah, it's called Classic Fight Team with Tyler Wombles.
Mm-hmm.
During COVID, I got rid of 10th Planet Costa Mesa, Fullerton, Orange, and Irvine. I got rid of those during COVID just to kind of like downsize and focus on specifically really focus on 10th Planet Las Vegas. That's what I was trying to do.
The first seminar I ever taught was either, I want to say it was 2014, could have been 2013. I want to say 14 at 10th Planet Costa Mesa. Um,
That's right.
right after
Yep.
so it was 14 because it was right after I won the Warrior of the Year, I believe, in 10th Planet
Correct.
in 13. So I taught over there. I taught leg locks. That was right before the Donaher and guys and stuff were doing that. And now it's like not a novelty thing to teach anymore. Leg locks and heel hooks and that sort of um thing. But yeah, so it was it was a big turnout because he had, so I know he's saying if you're thinking, oh, they're unsuccessful schools, that's why he set them down, but that's totally not the case because 10th Planet Costa Mesa was huge. um so I mean COVID,
They,
like
they
COVID, don't know who
actually
how
they
huge.
they still are doing very well. They're big. Ron Turner owns Costa Mesa and Irvine now, and Andy Ballmore owns Fullerton and Orange, and they're all thriving. Like, I mean, probably
Oh, so you didn't shut down those schools, you sold or gave away or exited those schools?
gave away. Yeah, I gave away.
Yeah.
Uh, Ron Turner and I have been business partners forever. As a matter of fact, he was my instructor way back when. We ended up becoming business partners and best friends for the most part. And then when I moved to Vegas, I was kind of commuting back and forth and running the back end of all those gyms. And it just was a lot, as my children started to age and we had more kids later in life. And then COVID hit, and it was just kind of like, listen, we all need to really like buckle down and take ownership of what we're doing. So it was more like a strategic departure just to get those guys to take ownership more because when you're running business, other people oftentimes will just wait for you to make the decision. And I knew during COVID they wouldn't be able to do that. So the only way that everybody be able to act like they were in charge is if I stepped aside and actually let them do it. And so thank God I did because they're all thriving. Everybody's super pumped now and doing a great job.
Yeah, it's rough running. I've had a couple people on that run multiple gyms at once. Somebody told me once that don't run two gyms, go from 1 to 10 or 1 to 12. And the reason
Yeah.
they said to do that was like, hey, if you run two gyms, you're going to try to micromanage two gyms and it's going to kill you. If you go to 12, you're going to have to actually have systems and let managers and let people like be in charge and delegate. And I mean, that's how you have systems that can run multiple. So do you agree or disagree with that? Is that kind of what you do, or?
I think that's super wise. You know, one of the problems that so micromanage is one, right? Like I was trying to micromanage, but I was also viewing everyone in all of those gyms as my student as well. So I I needed to be intimately involved. And so I was just dividing myself in unrealistic ways. But you know, as I got older, like now post pandemic, 50 years old, now I'm primed to be running 10, 20, 2, 5, whatever amount of gyms because I don't really consider myself a coach anymore. As of June of last year, I retired from coaching MMA and I'm kind of going back to my roots and just managing and being a business owner. I mean, I still teach, but I only teach because I love it. You know, I'd say like if I didn't love teaching classes, I would just run the gym, you know, as like a manager. But yeah, I think that's super wise. You know, if you have two gyms, you know, you feel like every single person in those gyms is your student. So then you want to be there all the time and you end up just working yourself to death. If you have 10, it's impossible to do that. So you kind of let go and you just start managing, you know. And I mean, I think whoever told you that's super wise.
Yeah, so I agree with that, at least the idea of it, because I think it paints a good picture for um, if you want more than one location, how it needs to be done. Um, because you've got to have people you trust that are doing um, the key things. It can't be all you. And so many people, their idea, I've seen a lot of gyms fail this way, that they take one gym and the gym's doing pretty solid and they're thinking, but they feel like they've hit a plateau and they can't really make much more money, and they're thinking, would like to make a double, so just do this second time, right?
Mhm.
And then we'll make double, right? And it seems good on paper, except at the end, I've seen one or both gyms fail, or one gym fail and the other one half its revenue, because they're not doing double, because you've got your 100% once, right? So if you're splitting yourself, you've got, it's like, oh, I'm going to give 100% for everything. Well, that's not how percentages work. You're going to divide.
Yeah,
Like you even like, oh, I can work life balance. Like, no, everything's going to have a percentage. You get married, that's going to have a percentage. Everything takes from something. So you're going to have to split it now. Or you're going to take it away from your family, right? Or you're going to take it the percentage away from somewhere for that rest of it. And that's why that usually fails. So what works is you put people in those places instead of it being all you. You have to have people in those places.
I agree. And there's also, I mean, obviously robbing Peter to pay Paul is what you're talking about. And, you know, we all do that. And the first thing we steal from is sleep, you know? So it's like, okay, I need 8 hours of sleep, but I got these four gyms I have to run. So instead of taking away time from my family, I'm just going to not sleep as much. And then you don't sleep as much and then you start making poor decisions. But there's also something else, like an underlying thing. And this is very common in gym business, is the ones that can, they will. And the ones that can't, they won't. So there's a real fine line. You open a gym and you put your most trusted black belt in said gym. And if he turns out to be one of the guys that can, like Matt Salinas, Budo Matt from 10th Planet Mission Viejo, or Mike Wilson from 10th Planet Whittier, those are all my black belts. And they were so good that they just can't work for me. It just doesn't make sense for them to work for me. They just need to go open their own gyms, right? And so eventually your best employees should go and open their own school. Hopefully they don't do it in your backyard and take all your students, but um, you develop these guys to a point. So the guys that end up running your gym for a long period of time, they either lack ambition or they lack one of the skills necessary to open their own spot. And that's something that I had to come to terms with. It was like, man, I have all these amazing guys and they're just going to go open their own gyms. So I'm constantly backfilling and replacing, just constantly. Or you get stuck with a guy that just doesn't quite cut it. He can do it 80%, but he's got one hole in his game. And then you need to backfill that, you know? And so you kind of got to take the good with the bad there.
Do you think it's possible though to to present somebody an opportunity so good that it doesn't make sense for them to open their own gym?
Yes, I do. You know, you could pay them $120,000 a year with like full benefits, and but I culturally, the way that I raise my black belts is to not think like that. So I'm actually creating my own competition and my own problems because I get these guys when they're 20 and they just, you know, they just got out of high school, maybe they wrestled a couple years in college, they're just training all the time, and I'm just constantly beating them over the head with like becoming an entrepreneur and like working hard and developing that. So I find if you stayed with me long enough, like from white to black belt, you just are not you're not going to be okay with just having a job. You know, it's kind of like I see the gym is pulling in $45,000 a month and you're paying me 10. Like, why can't I just go and replicate this myself somewhere else? You know, so that's kind of the push that I mean, I want all my guys to open their gyms. Why not? The United States is huge and these cities are massive and there's a huge market. And as long as they're doing it the right way and they're not opening up in someone's backyard and trying to compete directly with them, I don't see a problem. You know, I want all my black belts. Like Derek Rayfield is right now in the process of figuring out where he wants to end up going and opening a gym. Like we've been talking about that. And, you know, Budo Matt's probably one of my like biggest success stories, and Mike Wilson's like right there too. But both those guys, Mike Wilson's been open under less than 2 years, and he's already approaching 200 students. I think he's like 16 months or something like that in a really saturated market, and he's just killing it. Like these guys are doing a really good job. They're already cash positive, you know. And I'm Matt Salinas' gym is incredible. 10 Planet Mission Viejo is doing really good, you know.
So
So I mean, I think there's plenty of room and plenty of students to go around personally.
I think there's plenty of room and plenty of students to go around. Um, and I do think the multiple locations play is not the only play, but you're making that play. So let me ask this is I know you've let a handful of schools go, partly because well the owner you let go for one of them for it wasn't really even a student, it was more like a partner and it was
Yeah.
COVID and things like that. But so with that situation that you're talking about, um, what do you think the answer is to have multiple locations since you do if you want it, if you're choosing to view it with abundance mindset and like hey and just embracing that you're not going to be the end goal for these individuals, which is one way to think about it. I've talked to I've had other guests that had a different view of that, and I think this is a view too. And there's major corporations with the same idea. If you look at McDonald's, McDonald's doesn't want you forever. They want you for right now. The big difference between us and McDonald's though is McDonald's can go get a replacement because they can with their systems they can put any old person there. A BJJ black belt is much harder to get.
Yes.
And I think you're like me in that you don't want a BJJ black belt. You want your BJJ black belt and or someone that's in line with your values, your culture. Like so, there aren't that many BJJ black belts. I don't know the exact number, but there's kind of a lot. But there's way less 10th Planet black belts. And if you don't want a 10th Planet black belt, you want yours. Now you have very small pool. So how do you keep this going? Are you counting on producing the black belts fast enough? Do you have a training program? Like what's the thought there?
Well, so I mean, initially, I came up in a corporate background, and many years ago, long before I owned a 10th Planet, I lost out on a promotion because I couldn't. The guy behind me wasn't ready to take my spot, and I told myself at that point when I lost out to another guy, I asked my boss, I'm like, why didn't I get this promotion? And he's like, honestly, we couldn't backfill your position. You didn't have somebody ready. And so from that moment on, it's become my number one priority to replace myself constantly. And I'm a really good communicator with my students. Like I find a guy like I keep going back to Matt Salinas, Budo Matt, but he was a white belt, but he was good at jujitsu when I got him. But he had the right look, he had the right cadence. Everything about him was pretty cool. And I told him as a white belt, I said, "Hey, you're gonna run this gym for me one day." And then I did some like financial moves with him, and I helped him out, and I ended up giving him equity in the company, and he became my first white to black belt student, or well, second, Andy Ballmore too. But anyway, I I buy into these guys, and I get them to buy into what we're doing. And so my business model when I first started out is I want 24 gyms before I retire. I want to have 24 locations. I want to have 24 of my black belts running it. Then I want to go down to 10% equity in all 24 gyms. I want to have a $2,000 a month in perpetuity residual once I relinquish my percentages to my partners. And then I want one cash seminar for $3,000 a year. So that would be two $3,000 cash seminars a month, every month, right? And so that was my retirement plan when I first started. And then how I accomplished that was getting my white belts to buy in and understanding that it's going to be a 10-year process, right? So every once in a while, Brian Deeves from Texas moves to California, starts training with me. He's already a black belt, 10th planet. He's dope. He's good. That allows me to open a gym ahead of time because I inherited a guy who's already really cool that can do it. So I could open another gym. The other part of the strategy was I'm going to open small locations with a small footprint, and I'm going to blow them up to where it becomes unmanageable. There's just too many students. So we have 2,000 square foot gym. We've got 450 students. Every class has 60 or 70 people in it, and it's super nuts. So I'm going to do a zip code study on my gym, and I'm going to find a zip code that has 20% or more of my students in it, and then I'm going to open a gym there. And since it's my own gym, I can break the 10-mile radius since it's my own gym. Also, too, strategically, it gives you a better footprint in the market. I have 4 gyms; they're all within like a 20-mile radius. And when someone's going to sign up at, let's say, Jiu-Jitsu A or 10th Planet Orange County, I get to tell them, hey, if you sign up here, you have access to 4 gyms. And loosely, you can train at any 10th Planet you want as long as you drop in and just say you train here and your membership's cool. It gave us a really good uh, strategic value that it wasn't part of the intention necessarily, but that's how I was able to expand so fast. I don't know if you remember, but it was like within 3 years of opening Costa Mesa, I had 4 in Orange County, just boom. And the quality was not down. Like we had a high quality gym. We were putting out a lot of athletes. I was coaching a ton of fighters. And when COVID hit, it changed everything just because now we're fighting to just stay open. You know, being in California, a super liberal state, they were actively trying to shut gyms down. Like it wasn't like, hey guys, don't do this. We're not gonna look. But if you're operating, it's cool, but we're just not gonna look, but just don't do it. We gotta tell you. No, they were going on doors and like Oceanside, Geo was getting like jammed up all the time. You know, they were like so we really need to like kind of pull our resources in and focus on our own locations, you know. So that was the only reason that derailed, you know. But I think that was the winning strategy. Honestly, I think we could have done a lot of good things had COVID not hit.
Yeah. So when you your idea though on letting these people be entrepreneurs, because that's a little bit different than letting them go, is you're essentially doing a model, kind of like a franchise model, kind of, because
Mhm.
you are getting something out of their gym. So that's a different mindset altogether. It's like, okay, I'm going to let go of it, and I'm going to let go of a lot of the profit and basically all of the risk, and I'm going to take less upside. Um, but so are you doing that with the gym you've already built up, or are you taking this person that's at a gym, moving them to a new location and say, hey, now you're going to get 90%, and because you're keeping 10% and you're going to bring me in for seminars, etc. So are you moving them to a new location when that happens and they have to start it from zero and you're just kind of investing in the mats and stuff, or like how does that work?
No. So like that was the original business model prior to COVID. So I was a we had a partnership group. It was Andy Ballmore, Ron Turner, myself, and then I we ended up bringing in Matt Salinas as like a minority share partner. And then so what we did is we owned everything. Nobody else owned anything. They were all just contract employees, right? And then, but the model was to open 24 locations. And how I got out of it, like this never happened, but this was the plan, is I was just gonna dilute my shares down to 10%. That's it. And then we were gonna, I mean, 24 locations is a lot to manage, you know. So it was just like we would just give the head coach a large share of equity, right? And then you could draw up the contract however you want. So if I build a gym to 700 students, it's racking $70,000 a month. And it's easy for me to give you that. You've been working for me. I give you that. And then I say, I'm just going to take $2,000 a month and own 10% of the company. And, you know, so we were building the gyms out and
Mm,
making them profitable, and then teaching our black belts how to do it with the goal in mind that at the end of the day, they're going to end up with 90% of the company. That was the point. I'm not trying to own 100% of 10 businesses. I want to own 10% of 100 businesses. That's how you age out. You age out by allowing other people to do the work. And you know, I kind of want to make just a few decisions a day. That's it. You know, and I feel like we were there. You know, I didn't do that in Orange County. I walked all the way away from those. Like I have zero equity in the Orange County gyms. And it was fair because those guys were all during COVID, those guys were stressing and working and trying to keep them alive and make it happen, you know. And I wasn't going to be there. I was focusing over here. So it just made sense to kind of cut the company up and give everybody their share, you know.
yep. Yeah, COVID was different. You were lucky that the gyms made it during COVID because, um, I mean, California was especially rough, but like, we had in Texas, which is one of the places that had it better. Like we had notices of violation in my gym, like put on stuff, and like when I wasn't open, when I was sleeping upstairs, and like,
It's crazy.
uh, and at that time, like I lived there, that was by myself. That was like, it's not wasn't zoned residential, but like there was, what do you want me to do? Hop off with someone else now? I like that's not helping me isolate. But anyway, it was nuts everywhere. And some places more nuts than others. In California was that had a reputation of top tier nuts, especially in the bigger cities and stuff where you were. So
Yeah, even here in Vegas, you know, our governor at the time was a Democrat governor, and they had this like Western states pact where Gavin Newsom was the one leading it. So it was Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and California, and they were all just kind of like following what Gavin Newsom was doing. But thank God for us down here. I mean, we got notices too, but a couple of the guys would just kind of roll in, and we would have people in the gym and we'd be training, and they'd roll in, and I would walk up to them at the door, and there's like 50 people in the gym because we just had the windows taped up like dummies. And he'd be like, "Man, I'm glad to see you guys are honoring the 6 foot social distancing rules, and you don't have anybody in the gym." And he would give us all the papers. And I mean, there's 60 people in their music, sweat, and he would literally be telling me that he doesn't see anybody, and he would just walk out. And it was really cool, man. Like there was some really good people working for the system back then here in town. So we did dodge a couple bullets for sure.
yeah, you were. So in other words, the system was against you, but the individual working for the system didn't believe in the system. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
mean,
So
but that's hit or miss. You just lucked out with that one because uh there are other stories with that.
yeah, totally. Totally. He was a good dude, man. I was like, thank God you're the one watching our area, you know? Uh, but yeah, it was interesting times. I mean, it made us tough. There was a lot of gyms here in Nevada that closed a ton. There was a really popular UFC fighter that owned a jiu-jitsu academy called Evan Dunham. He closed during COVID. There was quite a few. And we had a big uh messenger group, probably about 10 gym owners here in town. And we were all talking about strategies on how to stay open and what we were gonna do. And it made us tight. The ones that made it during COVID, I mean, there's been 100 gyms open in this town since COVID, but during COVID, you know, it got down to, you know, I mean, there's still a lot of gyms here, but we all became super galvanized and close, you know, and we've remained that way even to today. So it was a good thing.
Yeah, I mean it kind of produced the evolutionary effect with some of these gyms because there were some gyms that hobby gyms or whatever you want to call them that has limped around because the nature of this business, if you want to put your time in and you're not really employing other people, you don't mind having another job or whatever, is you can kind of limp by with bad systems for a long time. It's like, okay, well, I'm more or less breaking even on rent, and I love doing it. And maybe you'd better be better off working for someone else if you're doing that, just coaching for somebody else. Um, but they don't. They get to own their own place, right? And and often their customer service is bad. They hurt students. It's a negative, like often the actual gym isn't good, right? A lot of those were eliminated. And I'm not saying some good gyms weren't eliminated, but honestly, some of the gyms eliminated. And I mean, I tried to help during COVID. I did little things where I gave money. I gave a lot of money away to gym owners. I did it that like a lot of 10th Planet guys got it. Um, and I said, hey, you're gonna make some videos or something for me or do a seminar in the future or something like that. Funny thing is, most of those people that wanted money, like 90 something percent of them broke their word, won't even film a couple videos for me, which I never even have used any video. Maybe I will, but the ones that I've never even used them for anything. It was more like a to not make it a charity thing. It was like more for them. So
Yeah.
like there's your problem. There's why you're not successful. Somebody gives you cash when you don't have anything but time and you won't even film a video. You won't even film
Yep.
a set of videos. You won't do anything. So you won't honor your word on anything. And here's part of your problem of why you're not successful in the first place. But yeah, so many of those guys got wiped out. Um, and the remaining ones typically were stronger. Like I hate to say it, but it might have helped jujitsu because there's not less jujitsu gyms than there were. I'm pretty sure there's more jujitsu gyms now. I don't have the
Oh, wait.
stats, but more now than before COVID, but like a better quality because they wiped out. And some of them just opened back again, but a lot of them didn't. And it's the new generation. So
Yeah, you're right. I feel like COVID got rid of like the bottom 20%, you know, and you know, we actually we did the opposite. We during peak COVID lockdown craziness, I ended up expanding the Henderson gym. I spent $80,000 just because everybody was like DMing me, all the gym owners panicking, like, we're not going to make it. We're losing students. This is insane. What are we going to do? And I was like, there's nothing better than to spend $80,000 to build out a new gym and expand when everybody's talking about closing. Like, as far as like a power play, I changed locations, built a big, really nice gym with showers. We built it all out, and no one can believe that I was doing it at that time. And we didn't lose anybody. I had nobody cancel. I would say less than 10% of my students actually canceled. And then I had one, well, more than one guy, but one of my students was like, he's a contractor and his business never slowed down during COVID. And he was like, I want to pay for multiple memberships, even though just because I want to help the business out. And I was like, no way, I can't accept. And he's like, if you don't do it, I'm just going to leave cash at your front door every month. And so he ended up turning on a couple extra memberships to help out. And, we had a lot of guys rally for us and we were making big boy moves. So everybody knew we weren't going nowhere. So they stayed committed to us. And at least here in Vegas, it was pretty cool what happened. Everybody on our team was super loyal and down with the cause, and it made us tighter. All of our COVID guys, they're like a whole solid group of people now. It was really cool.
Yeah, it was weird times, and I mean, we at my gym we closed for a bit and followed the rules. And I mean, we got grappling dummies, and we tried to follow the rules. Fortunately, we didn't have to be closed a super long time. But looking back, it's like, nothing made sense. And but that said, people were coming in trying to enforce it like when I was following the rules. Like I said, I got a notice of violation on my door while following the rules from
Yeah, it's
from
crazy.
staying there, right? So I was that guy in high school that is like they'd be doing drugs back behind the portables, and I'd walk out of the bathroom with my shirt partially untucked, and it's like, hey, you're come with me. It's like I get caught for everything.
Yeah,
Like I'm
yeah,
following the rules. It's like, oh no.
yeah. I get you. I'm pretty much the same way too. Like I get jammed up and I'm like, man, I'm not nearly the worst guy in this crowd. Sorry, I had a call come through. Sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, like I try not to be breaking too many rules just because everybody else doing it, because I know they're gonna get me somehow first. Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm not used to like being secretive or anything like that because I know I'm not doing bad stuff. So I'm like, I'm not building the habits of sneaking around and whatever. And that's part of it. It's part of why those guys behind the portables not getting caught, because they know how to keep everything on the down low and how to slip away when they see the authority figures. And it's like, I'm not trying to run from the authority figures because I thought everything was good. But the second anything's not good, the hammer
Dude,
comes
I
down.
I got a question for you. What about all this money getting thrown at jujitsu now? It's crazy, huh? Like
That's
what BMAC doing and Craig Jones Invitational and all that stuff. It's wild.
There's eyes on it now is part of it. Also, I do think that Craig Jones may have just lucked out a bit. It's hard to say you didn't luck out when there isn't any sort of definite business plan to make money back. It's like, hey, here it is, do like, and here's multiple millions of dollars. So that seems not that Craig
It
Jones
doesn't
hasn't, yeah, hasn't earned
to me
his base,
to me it
but
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how it's coming in, but the fact that it's here is crazy. Like Andy won the PGF with BMAC, and that's like real money. It was $20,000. It was crazy. And then
well,
and
with
then
BMAC, he's earning that. He lucked out less, in my opinion, because he built it first. He built
yeah,
something with
yeah,
eyes on it. And when you have
yeah,
eyes on something, it's worth money.
yeah, you're right for sure. I'm just like I'm astonished. I mean, in just a few, I mean, Eddie Bravo started it with EBI. I remember if you sub everybody, you could win $10,000. And I remember just thinking, like, holy shit. I did all the matchmaking and like event coordinating with Master Vic and them for like the first 10 shows. And it was hard to get people in the first few shows. It was really hard. Like, we even had some blue belts in it. Uh, and some young blue belts like Josh Baez, we had him in, and it was crazy. But once he was able to show that he was going to pay the winners, then it was super easy to get people in. Now with $1 million prize, man, if I hope, I mean, there's no way this guy's going to make money. Whoever Craig Jones investor is, he's losing for sure. But Man, could you imagine if they could follow up with another season and another? I
Yeah,
mean, that
that's
would
the
be
concern
amazing.
with it. That's the concern with him trying to kill ADCC, which he won't. But like compete with ADCC is because ADC is going to be there next year or every 2 years, whatever. ADC is still going to be there, and it it wouldn't surprise me if this is a one and done. But that said, some other event will be here because the new age is here, and the new age was always going to be here because too many people do jujitsu now for this not to be a big thing.
Yep.
It's jujitsu is growing up as a pro sport, and it's growing up so much that in a time where it was much less sophisticated than it was now, Marcelo Garcia dipped his foot in MMA. And yes, he had a bad first fight, but the real reason I think he could have made it, the real reason he said is like, hey, I make more money in jujitsu. Like, he really was making more money in jiu-jitsu than MMA way back then. I think he's counting his seminars and instructionals and such, but um, there is opportunities there, and I see it growing, and I see especially the IBJJF and things like that that are they're all amateur tournaments. There people put it on a pedestal, but there's no money, and then people are like, oh, but look, if you not for the yeah, there's no money for winning the world championships, but look, if you won the world championships and the pans and the whatever, and you get a top ranking, here you could still that we pay their win like what, a few grand. It's like
I mean, yeah. Oh no, you'll do seminars if you win the world. You know, reality is like, I think MMA, at least as far as earning goes, is outpacing jujitsu right now. And you could see that there was a time 15 years ago where a guy like me, a mediocre average athlete who's a dad that's addicted to training and learning, can actually fight MMA and carve out a living doing it, like a very modest, meager living. Conor McGregor hits the scene. Now all of a sudden he's getting points on pay-per-view. He's a billionaire. He forced everyone to get paid more. The days of the average dad that grew up wrestling and fighting in the UFC, those days are over. Now the money's so big that it's super athletes in the UFC now. You're getting dudes that flamed out of the NFL. You know, they got drafted, they didn't make it. They go fight in the UFC and they're real athletes, real athletes. So as the money increases, the level of athlete is going to increase. And I think jujitsu is on the same trajectory. Let's say the CJI is only a one and done. Craig Jones Invitational is going to force Mo to do something with ADCC, which is going to force IBJJF to do something because
you think
if
you think
I think
IBJJF is
so,
going to react to anything?
they're gonna have to. Well, I mean, ultimately, like the whole that culture of like gi athletes is gonna. It's always gonna be there. It's gonna be like the amateur level. It's gonna be the IBJJF is legitimately gonna turn into the amateur level. Listen, if you're gonna get hurt doing IBJJF and there's no money in it, or you can go to ADCC, PGF. You could do these things where you can win 40, 50, a million. Like, why would you do the other one other than like bragging rights? So, in order to stay relevant, once the money starts getting big, everybody has to add the money. You see it with MMA, it happened. Like, once Connor started making the big money, now your average, it made everybody get more money. Everybody gets more money now.
Well, there's a big difference to me here, and it's that IGHF has a much different business model than ADCC, PGF, all these other ones you mentioned. It's that IGHF's goal is to make money on white belts, blue belts, purple belts, mainly
Copy.
white and blue. And these other organizations you mentioned don't even really have a circuit for those. They're pro shows. IBJJF isn't a pro show. The black belts are also just there as a spectacle. And I don't think the logic of, oh, okay, why would they get hurt in there when it's 40 or 50K? Like the IBJJF appeals to a dude that wants to go compete in the gi because they compete in the IBJJF because they train at the IBJJF gi school. and their friends go compete in this. So they're going like the IBJJF is for recreational competitors, and they use these pros to pull them in. They don't really care about these pros. That's why I don't think they'll react.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good analysis. It really is because uh there is no pro circuit at ADCC. There is no pro circuit at PGF. Like those are already good guys, right?
it
And
is the, like there is
where are
only
you
the
gonna
pro
cut your
circuit. Yeah.
yeah, where are you gonna cut your teeth? You're gonna do that at the local tournaments, but unless you guys start making a ton of money competing, it's gonna be because you go to IBJJF. I mean, this is an Eddie Bravo line. This is not my line. It's girlfriends and teammates. That's all it is. Maybe your mom and dad show up too, but there's no fans there. No one's going to the world to just watch. There's not a drunk guy with a Raiders hat just watching at the world. It's boring to
And
him.
that's right now where all the money in grappling tournaments is, though. The money in grappling tournaments is having a whole bunch of kids there and their parents and stuff and charging the competitors. It's not a professional sport. But it makes, that's most of the money. The age where you can actually make money on pro events with pay-per-views is a new age, and that's a new way to monetize grappling, and it's a different venue, and there's always going to be the majority of the competitors and the majority of place in grappling won't be people ready for TV, because one of the cool things about grappling is it's not like the MMA in that at an MMA school, most people won't be fighting MMA unless you got a weird outlier MMA school. They might be training it and whatever, but fighting MMA isn't for most. But a majority of your jiu-jitsu school could go do a grappling tournament. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they're never gonna, they don't care about any sort of pro thing because that won't be them, but they could go do it. I tell my students this all the time, and I say this all the time. We've put one person in the UFC already. Ryan Spann went from my gym. He trained somewhere elsewhere with at a spot with actual other UFC fighters at it, but like we produce multiple pros and one UFC fighter. And I tell people all the time, competing at this gym, I don't see training's purpose for competing. I see competing's purpose for training. So in other words, I see competitions as part of your training. For at least for the normal person, there is an outlier dude that could see this as a career path. But in general, if you want to fight MMA at my gym, I try to talk you out of it at first. And if I can, I did you a favor. If I'm able to talk you out of that, then you shouldn't have been on it. Like, if I can be like, hey, there's other ways to make money. If I can list all that stuff and you're like, you're right. I shouldn't be fighting MMA. I should do this recreationally and I should get a different career. Then I just did you a favor, because if one conversation can derail you, I just saved you tons of time and misery, because you would have got derailed in a much rougher way at some other point.
Yeah.
Because fighting MMA is for the few. Doing a grappling tournament is for the many.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't think IBJJF has to readjust, because all these other tournaments, the local shows, they're like small IBJJFs. They're all model their rules and stuff. So IBJJF is just king amateur. You can make money with the amateur league.
Yeah, that's actually a good way. I was kind of looking at it more like the rising tide floats all ships type of thing, like as the money starts to increase, it's gonna pull the level, but the level that it's pulling is like the top less than 1%, are gonna be
Yeah,
impacted
I
by
don't
that.
think it's gonna pull. I don't think just like when Conor McGregor got paid more, everybody in the UFC got paid more, and other top pro organizations also got paid more. But bottom level organizations still paying people $200, $500 for a pro fight.
Yeah,
They didn't
yeah,
pull
yeah.
anything over there.
But what they are doing is they're attracting better athletes. Like the
Yes.
athletes are getting better now. Yeah, I just think there's a lot of money to go around. There are actually a lot of tournaments out there that pay blue belts. You know, what's the
Yes,
one
but they
called?
pay blue belts for a reason. They pay blue belts to sell tickets or bring their friends in, not to sell outside pay-per-views.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They're just getting like they're getting ticket sales off of it.
They pay
That
kids too, as long as they
yeah,
can go sell ticket. So they're making these kids salespeople and affiliates is what they're doing.
either way though, the fact that there's more money in jujitsu is a good thing. You know,
Yep.
I think the amount of time and effort it takes, like I don't know if you pay attention to like what our kids are doing here at our team, but we have like four of the best kids on the planet that train here at our school, and they're going to the ADCC Kids Worlds. But these kids are like traveling. It's crazy the amount of money that their parents are spending. These guys are doing all the opens, winning everything. They're traveling everywhere, and I mean they're all headed to Texas this weekend to do that main character thing. And it's cool when companies, like a couple of them are sponsored by a clothing company, like by apparel companies that are actually giving them money, like sponsorships for like events. And these are little kids. That was unheard of when I was coming up.
Yep.
You know, nobody was getting any money. So there is a trickle down effect that's happening. And I think it's good, and I hope it continues. And I hope Craig Jones Invitational can do 10 shows. And I think for sure at the very minimum, that's going to force Mo to do something different. You know, they're on the same day here in this town, same day, right across town from each other. It's going
Yep.
to be wild. Andy just pulled out of ADCC and is doing the Craig Jones Invitational, and you know, we had like a lot of talks about that too. But it should be interesting, and I'm hoping that that has a trickle down effect, and it even gets to like the kids. That'd be great.
So let's talk about something that you just mentioned with the kids. And there's a stat, and I forget where it comes from and the exact numbers, but it was something that went like this, that I heard that it was some very large percentage of parents, when surveyed about their kid in high school sports that they were spending a lot of money on. They were asked, one, how much money they're spending. It's a lot, right, for travel and whatever. It's way more than martial arts lessons. At
Yes.
the beginning, maybe it wasn't, but when they're serious, it was. And the other was that a very large portion, it was over 50%, felt that their kid had a potential career in that sport, considering that almost no kids will have a real, not college, not scholarships, but like a real career in that, that the majority of, when 0.01 of them or something like that are going to actually have that career, and the majority of parents feel that way, and then they're willing to spend all that money. What impact does that have in our business? Is there some way school owners can leverage it? Should we ethically leverage it? Like, should we be looking at um you know, trying to build athletes? Because I know you know Sean Applegate. When I was around
Oh,
his gym, I remember like he built a culture of um of a lot of people in his gym wanted to be a professional grappler, not instructor. There is a big difference. A
yeah,
professional grappler, and that was quite a few years ago when it was even harder. And it's like there's a culture of people wanting, and I never built that. I discouraged that culture in my gym because I just saw it as like not realistic. You want to teach jujitsu, that's very valuable, but you want to be a pro jujitsu athlete is viable. And I'm not
yeah,
to tell you you can't, but it's like building the culture of that is the goal. But in the other hand, if you're telling kids you could do that in football or basketball, it's also basically not viable if you look at the percentages. You tell an average dude that's not 7 foot tall or more that they could be a pro basketball player, you're more out of line there. So should we be leveraging that to grow a kids program? Like,
hold
how does
on.
this work?
I cannot hear you. I don't know what's going on. Hold on.
Hello, testing.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. We're back. Okay. Something happened where you kind of like got quiet. You know what's crazy is number one, Sean Applegate's amazing. It's crazy what he's doing over there with his team. I mean, they are educated. They're they're beasts over there. We have a very similar thing at this gym. where you walk into just my 6 a.m. class, and 60% of the guys in there are competing regular. You come in at our 7 p.m. class, and it's like 95% are savage competitors. It's like a culture thing, and it makes sense. I was coaching MMA at the time that I started building these gyms, like at a high level. So we just attracted competitive type of people, and we run it like a wrestling room. But uh, to talk about, is it worth it to like do that when you take in the percentage of people that are going to become professional athletes, like parents in sports? I have a daughter that wrestled in college. She just graduated. And then I have a little 9 year old that's probably the top two golfers on the planet at 9 years old. And we travel and spend a crazy amount of money to golf, right? And kind of my idea in theory on the investment that it takes. So I would tell any parent, especially in jiu-jitsu, like, hey, I want my son to win ADCC. He's 5, and it's like, well, there's a couple of things. Like for me, having average children is impossible. My kids are not allowed to be average. It's just, I can't do it. You're not sitting on the couch. You're not playing video games. You're going to pick a sport. I don't care what it is. You want to be a pianist, you're going to be the best. And we're going to spend, we're going to buy the best. We're going to hire the best coaches. We're going to travel. We're going to do everything. If you don't know what you want to do, the default sport is going to be wrestling and jiu-jitsu, period. No questions asked. My 9 year old knows what she wants to do. She wants to play golf. Therefore, uh, we're going to spend all the money we have, and we're gonna support her. Will she make it to be a professional? I believe so. But if she doesn't make it, I can't take my money when I die with me. Period. It's just staying here. So why not invest it in my child? B, even if we strive for greatness and we fall short, the fact that she's got grown humans that love her, that are dedicating their time to her and really trying to pursue greatness so far as she loves it and wants to do it, the byproduct is having a strong, passionate, independent, well-rounded person that can achieve on a lot of levels. And in corporate America, there's a reason why wrestlers and jiu-jitsu athletes and golfers really perform exceptionally in corporate America, is because as a wrestler, to win league, you have to get up there in your underwear and you have to perform against somebody that wants to kill you, and you have to get the win. And if you lose, it's not because of a defender on the soccer field that let a goal go by. It was because you didn't do something. And so people that compete in individual sports have a tendency to do better in corporate America than not. And so I would say the likelihood, mom, that your kid is going to make it to winning ADCC is very slim. Like you're really up against it. But the byproduct of pursuing that for the next 10 years is going to be that your child is going to be incredibly resilient and able to make decisions on their own, and won't be afraid to stand out alone and be the only one saying that this is the right way to go. And a lot of people want to follow leaders like that. So I don't think that it's wasted, even if you don't achieve your goal. I think the pursuit of it just makes amazing children. And I mean, I guess time's going to tell, because this new generation of children athletes, they're going to be way better than us. I mean, I've got 13-year-olds that are way better than me at jiu-jitsu. I can beat them just because I'm bigger than them. But they're going to be very strong humans and independent thinking people. So I mean, that's a sales. That's my sale. Like, yes, you should. Yes, you should. You should spend all your money on your children, and you should give them all of your time, and you should develop them to be the best that they can possibly be. And at the end of the day, you're just going to get a kid that was loved by his parents and supported, and they're going to be amazing because of it.
I think that's an amazing answer, and I think that that you're right, that the pursuit of excellence is going to positively, it's going to have an impact on an individual. And
Yeah.
I've always been pursuit of excellence person, and I haven't always been a world champion in everything I've done, but I've ended up pretty pretty okay. And like I'm a BJJ black belt, and most don't make it that far, right? And you know, I do agree with that, and I think that's a great justification for that. So then, do you, in that case, do you think you should build a culture? Because I'm not thinking, when I mentioned Sean's gym, because I've spent some time with Sean. I really like Sean. I've spent some time over there. I just thought that was odd. I've been in a lot of rooms with hard rooms and a lot of competitors. I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about dudes that their future plan is make a living at pro grappling, and that there's a lot of them in the room, right? That there's like that these guys are putting off other stuff, like that there are. And I see it a lot more positive for the kids, because the same thing with the excellent. So like, how do you build that culture for the kids, for the parents? How do you get kids and parents bought in? Because that's going to help. I get what you're saying. It's going to positively affect them. It's going to make them way more dedicated. It's going to change the way they're trained, rather than be a casual when baseball season flops in. Because I do think tasting a lot of things could be okay. But I get what you're saying, that like these flip floppy do everything kids are average, and like they're not the exceptional kids, right? So how do you sell that? How do you build something for parents like that?
Well, it all starts with like, I mean, our youth instructor here is Andy.
Hmm.
So we have our best instructor teaching the kids. So the kids see Andy competing and then they want to emulate that. And our gym's not for everybody. You know, we do get kids that come here and they don't make it. And it's just too intense, and it's like a wrestling room. It really is. Like you come in here and it's hard work and we're grinding, and you know, there's not, you get a maybe an attaboy a week, you know, like, hey, good job today, Brian. But other than that, like uh we kind of built a culture. It's changing a little. Like I'm trying to change it in the mornings when I teach. I'm trying to change it to where we're getting more casuals in here. But um you know, all the parents that are here, they're all bought in, man. And it's like, once you change the culture to a competitive culture, then you know, you take a big hit at first. I actually talked to Anthony Burchak about this a while ago. I was like, if you want a competitive room, you got to change it to where you're going to be grinding, and then your casuals are going to go away, and you're going to take a big hit. But then over time, you're going to get a guy moving to town like me, and I'm going to come in there and train, and I'm going to be like, oh, wow, this room's crazy tough. This is where I want to be. And then over time, you'll start to build it up. But then you will become that. And so you got to be careful if that's what you want to become. And for me, the reason that I'm okay with the competitive gym environment is because my number one goal was never jujitsu. Jujitsu was number 4 on my list. Culture was number one thing that we were selling. Culture. I feel like at my gym, when I'm teaching, at least, I feel like I'm the only thing between a 12 pack of beer and a Laker game is my jujitsu practice. So culturally in the gym, I got the music pumping, and we're gonna have fun, and we're gonna train hard, and you're gonna be exhausted. And I feel like I'm fighting against popular culture every day. I feel like I'm fighting against the TV and the Kardashians and whatever sports organizations on. And I literally take it personally if one of my students says, hey, sorry I didn't come in, I was at the Raider game. I'm like, what? Like, I got to be better. So culture was always number one. And then self-defense was number 2. Fitness and health was number 3, and jujitsu was number 4. But a byproduct of the first 3 is great jujitsu. So having more of a competitive gym environment for me sells the self-defense portion better, because I have a lot of law enforcement that train with me. And I'm like, man, if you're good here and you can handle yourself here, believe me, in the streets, no one can touch you, because we're so competitive here and our pace is so much higher than most gyms, that if you can make it here, I can sleep easy at night knowing that if it's one guy, no weapon, you're going to be just fine. And so since self-defense is my number 2 pillar of the gym, the competitive culture really feeds into the self-defense aspect of the gym.
So I've had a number of other guests on that have a lot to say about um beginner programs and like not filtering out people too fast at the beginning and et cetera, et cetera. Are you worried about that? Or you just try to filter people faster? Do you have a period where fresh beginners can't roll? Um, or what do you think about all that?
We get thrown into the deep end immediately. So like your first day, you might spar with 3 or 4 black belts. I don't believe that white belts should train with white belts. There's a couple of things. So my purple belts need to know how to teach, and they need to know how to be excellent communicators. In order to become a brown belt, you're thinking more along the lines of an instructor at that point. For me, it's a martial arts thing, like you learn this skill, you need to be able to give it to somebody else. So if you're a white belt, I don't want you training with other white belts. And we're here to have a good time, learn how to defend ourselves, get in shape, and learn jujitsu. And the best way that you're going to accomplish that is to train with a higher ranked person, because the higher ranked people, are trying to learn how to give the knowledge back. So a white belt trains with a purple belt. That's good for the white belt and it's good for the purple belt. A brand new student trains with a higher level student. It's actually safer for them because 2 white belts are going to hurt each other. So yeah, no, we don't do any of that. It's like you come in and you just jump right into the deep end. That's what you do. And I'm not going to let you sink, but you're going to have to swim. I'm going to help you. I'm going to hold your hand a little bit, but ultimately you're going to have to rise to the level. And most people do. You'd be surprised, especially in our gym environment. When you walk in here, you already know what time it is. Music's loud. No, everyone just calls me coach, or they call me Casey. It's like a wrestling room. It's just a lot different. And so yeah, no, we don't do any of that. Like beginner classes, we don't have them. It's all levels.
Yeah, I mean, so back in the day, that's all there ever was. And that's what I came through, and that's where we were forever. And we have a beginner program and all that stuff now. And I do like it. There's certain things that it's changed. I'm like, man, is there a way that I can have everything? And there's certain things that it just delays also. Um, but yeah, I you're the first person that I've had on actually that still does that. That still does. Henry Gracie would tell you that you should be that you should be shut down, and that you're that's not ended, that you must have that. You mean to tell me that your students don't have to wait 17 years before they do live resistance training? Um, but
Well,
yeah,
well, I actually, it's crazy that we are doing this because you do a lot of things that I want to do, and I really respect the way that you put in process and systems. And yeah, you're right. I need to get better at that. But our gym's not hurting. Our gym is doing very well, and I am like a specific type of pizza. I'm not for everybody.
right.
You don't have to like the flavor that I am. I'm cool with that. I'm fine. I think that we do a really good job, and I mean this business model has been replicated time over time over time, and it's thriving, especially in today's marketplace. The shift of no gi, but you know this better than anybody. When we came in to jujitsu, everyone hated on us.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone hated 10th Planet. We started kids programs, and I remember parents coming to me, and if you Google Eddie Bravo, he's sitting in Lotus with a bong between his legs. And
Yeah.
I would have parents go, "Oh my God, is this your master? Is he a weed smoker?" And I mean, you're talking a decade and a half ago,
Yeah.
and that's it. I mean, that's not a lot of time. And shit's changed, but I've always gotten hate from everyone when we were
Well,
in
I'm
our
not trying to hate, by the way, on your process.
no, no. No, totally. I know that.
I was
But
making a joke about Henner because I also
no,
strongly disagree with his entire stance that he had in that case. Right,
no,
everything he said is ridiculous.
I'm not taking it as hate. Not at all. But one thing I will say is like, for me, we have done everything. We've done beginners classes, and we've done this and we've done that. And for us, we do a beginners class, and all of a sudden they're in it for like a week, and then they want to get into the normal classes, you know. And I'm not trying to hold anybody back. I'm trying to progress everybody. So it's like we have in our gym, the mats are kind of divided. There's four squares, and if you kind of want to go light, you go to the back left corner. And if you want to go hard, you go to the front right corner by the desk. And and it kind of like everyone kind of knows where you need to be to get the work, you know? So people find their own, not everybody's, and no one's getting hurt in here. Everybody's super safe and respectful, you know? But I just found over time that I'm not I'm really not going to get in line with people. I'm going to continue to do it my way. And at some point in time, if that way stops working, then maybe I'll make an adjustment. But the one thing that I do want to do after we get off of this call, I want to touch base with you about your process and your systems. I've been meaning to do that for a long time. You know, like I still real old school, you know, like the way
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
run my business. We just hired a front desk person, 15 years of running a gym. I hired a front desk person for the first time like 3 months ago.
yeah, yeah. I
And
mean,
it's crazy.
so you can so kind of like sales. I say this all the time. Like, so uh, I wasn't naturally good at sales, and neither was anyone in my team. And then you could go through the process and learn sales and be great. And there's some dudes that don't need to do that as much. I'm not saying they couldn't benefit from sales training, but they're just more natural at it. And you can get, I still think the ultimate is having real systems and real training, but like you could definitely wing your way through a decent amount. And when you told me black belts paired with people or upper ranks paired with white belts, um, that is, in my opinion, a beginner class inside of that. And that's what we did before the change. And you could even see a beginner class being worse than that, right? Is because I think the same thing as you, right? Is when the white belts pair with the other white belts, it's not as good, right? That's obviously not as good. Um, I think that's no questions asked. And when you get the beginner class, will a couple upper ranks do it to help you or to warm up? Maybe. But then now you have white belts with white belts. If you have enough black belts, I always had this thing about like not loving open mats, especially for beginners. We've added them, and it's like it's going really well because the upper ranks are taking care of the like.
Yeah.
If you have that, you can get away. I'm still pretty sold on if you want to make a world champion, you widen the base as much as possible. Just like the in football, the whatever they call it, the D1, the D2, the different size of the schools. Everybody has the same number of people on the football team. Why does it matter? Well, the school with the largest number of people will inevitably have a huge advantage on having the best team. So if you can do anything to make less white belts quit, you will probably have down the line, you'll have more and better black belts.
I, dude, I agree with you 100%, man.
Yeah.
I just if you're playing the percentages, if you have 10,000 students, you have a way higher
That's part of the
likelihood.
secret of the Danaher team at Henzo's. And I'm not trying to take anything from Danaher, but it's like, bro, if you have 1,000 students, somebody should be good. And he had thousands, I think. And how many people came through and how many good talent came from other places over there. And like, that's part of the equation. And so if you have 12 people on your mat and you can't keep very many people very long and don't have marketing systems and business systems, it's going to be rough to make a world's champion unless you're just very lucky, because not everybody's going to be the dude that you need to start with to make
Totally,
the world champion.
totally. I say this. I'm walking into the gym. I got to run a practice right now, but I say this all the time, man. I wake up every morning and I'm like, oh shit, they still haven't figured it out. I mean, it's so crazy. I've been so lucky, man. It started with Tony Ferguson. Even before I was 10th Planet, Boogeyman used to take the train up to Orange County. I owned a gym called Subtech MMA, and he would train with me before I was even 10th Planet, and just getting ready for some MMA fights. And then I ended up with Andy Varela over here, and I've been really lucky, man. And I know that 90% of my success is because I've been fortunate enough to have great people around me. And that's why I need to get these systems in place, you know, because I'm getting older and I'm less of like a frontline leader now, and I'm more kind of like in the back. And I'm going to have to switch my business model eventually to like just kind of getting students in, because I'm trying to be in the back now. I don't want to be in the front anymore, you know. But hey, Brian, I got to get going. I got a bunch of
Yeah,
people. You can see them in here. They're all just sitting there
right.
waiting for me to
We're at
chat.
about time. We're at about time. So let's call this one a day. And yeah, if you ever want to talk with me about systems, things like that, I would love to just set a time, and I would love to help you, man. This has been a really cool podcast. I love having different types of people on there. So do you have where should anybody reach you if they want to follow what you're doing? Where should they?
The best place for me is on Instagram, Coach Casey 10 on Instagram. And you know, I respond to every single DM. I don't really scroll through Instagram a lot. I post a lot, but I'm not on it a lot. So if anybody wants to at me or DM me, that's the only way I'm really going to see it.
All right. Well, thanks so much. And hit me up if you ever want to talk more about systems. I'd be happy to help you.
You're the man, brother. Appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Peace.